Like ILM is just like this powerhouse of breakthroughs in the history of cinema. And every time they've done something significant, the filmmaker came in and said, I don't care how hard this is. The technology shouldn't lead this. This is what we need to do. Can we figure out a way to do it? My name is Gareth Edwards and I am the director of The Creator.
We really wanted to start with this idea that if we find amazing locations, the science fiction elements will grow out of them. And that was very exciting. Hi, I'm Jay Cooper. I'm the visual effects supervisor on The Creator.
It was a really ambitious idea. I was super keen to do this film differently.
There's so much heart to it. We wanted to make it work and we wanted to be there to support him, and we were all thrilled to be a part of this. Hi, my name is Catherine Farrar-Bluff. I was the visual effects producer at ILM on The Creator. When I first found out about the project, I was nervous but also really excited because it was so unconventional.
I wanted to reverse engineer the VFX shots. Instead of designing the film first, I really wanted to go around the world and go on the journey these characters go on. What happened is we got some money to go and do a location scout, and I sneakily took a camera with me, and I didn't tell anyone, but the plan was if we go film these amazing places and just catch monks walking amongst the ruins in Cambodia, or people just driving on a moped past us as we travel somewhere, with no tracking data, with no markers, and just gave it to ILM and said, can you turn these into robots?
It became this puzzle a little bit of not knowing how much we were into any one scene or shot until we were sort of further along in art with James.
The approach that Gareth took to filming some of these everyday moments was done in such a way that you don't normally see a high level of visual effects integrated with those characters. And so we feel as though we're an audience in these very naturalistic shots. That really just added a great amount of depth to the film. My name's Andrew Roberts. I was on-set visual effects supervisor. Simulants are seen as the most realistic, most sophisticated version of artificial intelligence. And then from a visual point of view, they've taken on characteristics of humans.
First thing that Gareth asked of us is to try to find forms, and we did a lot of design where we experimented with how much of the head to remove. He really liked the idea of the negative space. He wanted to make it sure that it didn't feel like a makeup gag or that it was something that we couldn't do easily on set.
The design was complicated, and integrating that into these live action plates with very little data from set. We had a pretty small footprint on location, and so it makes the post process a little more challenging. But I think once we were able to come up with a good formula, it worked, and it worked really successfully across many different characters.
So we see characters like Alfie, played by Madeline Boyes, and Haroon, played by Ken Watanabe. One of the things that I had to do on set was ensure that we could track the movement of their head, the sliding of their skin, in such a way that we'd be able to integrate those robotic elements.
Before we got on set, I met with our tracking and layout masters at ILM, and I said, okay, what is the minimum amount of information that you need in order for us to figure out where the head positions are and for us to be able to augment these humans? You have, on one hand, a very rigid, hard surface of this metal components and hard plastic. On the other hand, you have humans whose faces are almost by definition elastic and malleable. And so we had to come up with a number of tricks on how to get those things to work.
We went to Tokyo and Indonesia and Nepal and everywhere, and we shot these plates, did a little test. James Klein painted these things in just a few hours and then pretty much projected onto simple 2.5D geometry. And they looked amazing. And it was like shots that would normally take months to do were happening in a few days.
Shooting those varied locations gives it a real rich texture. There's nothing quite like being in a floating village. All those little details that you really wouldn't be able to make up or imagine if you were just on a sound stage. The level of integration of the history that's been established, thinking about if we were 100 years in the future, what would objects and vehicles look like.
That approach applied to 97% of everything we were filming in the movie, but there was this little section in space, and it was like a biosphere where you can see the Earth and the stars, and there's yet the sun's coming through, but it's nighttime, you know, and so there was so many things about that. It's like this doesn't exist. We can't do this. And so then the obvious option was, well, what about stagecraft? I was excited about it, but I was also sort of like, it was so different to how we'd been shooting the rest of the movie, that was kind of this concern that aesthetically, would it marry? Something that's really important to this movie is that it looks like something a little bit from the 1970s in terms of the cinematography. It's like, we have to have these lenses, we have to have these cameras, and these were like 1970s, very characterful, vintage anamorphic lenses, and they don't lend themselves to being perfectly tracked. But ILM figured it out, and we just treated those sets just like they were temples in Cambodia.
The visual style is breathtaking. Production design from James, the phenomenal cinematography from Oren and Greg.
Hats off to Jay and the team. They never blinked once. They were like, okay, we understand why you want it to look like this, we'll make it work.
You know, the success of any project is really not me or Ian or Andrew or Charmaine. It's really our teams and every artist along the line.
I've never worked with a director who is so available and engaged in the full visual effects process, and that was so rewarding to our whole crew.
Everybody was just in love with the subject matter, in love with the design, and really enjoyed the process. So for me, it was just sort of a once-in-a-lifetime experience.